For most of our existence, being human did not mean belonging to one species. It meant sharing Earth with several different kinds of humans. 50,000 years ago, our family tree was still alive around us. Neanderthals, Denisovans, island humans, and Homo sapiens occupied the same planet. Some were powerful and cold-adapted. Others were remarkably small. Some survived in places where modern humans would struggle without advanced technology. Today, only Homo sapiens remains. That fact can make our survival look inevitable, as though evolution had always intended us to win. But evolution does not plan winners. It produces populations, exposes them to changing conditions, and preserves only those that survive long enough to reproduce. We were not necessarily the strongest human species. We were not the first, and we may not have possessed the largest brains. So why did every other human lineage disappear while ours expanded across the planet? The answer is not one battle, invention, or catastrophe. It is a story of climate, isolation, population size, competition, interbreeding, adaptability, and perhaps an uncomfortable amount of luck. To understand it, begin with the human species that endured longer than any other known member of our family, Homo erectus. Homo erectus appeared nearly 2 million years ago, when our own species was still unimaginably far in the future. Their existence lasted so long that all recorded human history would occupy only a narrow fragment near the end of their timeline. They were among the first humans with bodies suited for long-distance walking and running. Long legs, shorter arms, and an efficient upright frame. They also became the first known human species to expand far beyond Africa, reaching environments across Asia that their ancestors had never encountered. Their brains were smaller than ours, but their survival record was extraordinary. They produced effective tools and maintained successful ways of life for immense periods. Yet longevity does not guarantee permanence. Eventually, surviving Homo erectus populations became restricted, isolated, and vulnerable to environmental change. On Java, forests shifted, habitats contracted, and the large animals they depended upon became less available. A large, connected population can recover from disaster. A small population trapped in one region may be destroyed by a sequence of ordinary failures. A few poor hunting seasons, a changing landscape, disease, or declining birth rates can become irreversible when no outside population can help. By roughly 110,000 years ago, the final known Homo erectus populations had disappeared. A species that survived for almost 2 million years did not suddenly become inferior. The world around its last members simply became narrower. Then there were the Neanderthals, the human species most often reduced to a caricature of violence, stupidity, and primitive behavior. That image has collapsed under modern evidence. Neanderthals were intelligent, technologically capable, socially complex, and exceptionally adapted to harsh Ice Age environments. Their bodies were compact and muscular, with broad chests, powerful limbs, and heavy bones that preserved heat and endured enormous physical stress. They hunted dangerous animals at close range. Their skeletons carry injuries resembling those suffered by people repeatedly thrown against large, struggling animals. They controlled fire, manufactured sophisticated tools, cared for injured group members, and may have deliberately buried some of their dead. Their brains were, on average, comparable in size to ours and sometimes larger. Their disappearance cannot be explained by simple stupidity. Neanderthals successfully occupied Europe and Western Asia for hundreds of thousands of years before large numbers of Homo sapiens entered those regions. For thousands of years, the two species encountered each other. They competed, observed one another, exchanged behaviors, and sometimes had children together. That last fact changes the meaning of extinction. Neanderthals did not vanish completely. Part of their population was absorbed into expanding Homo sapiens groups. Many people living outside Africa today carry small percentages of Neanderthal ancestry. Their biological story continues inside another human species. But interbreeding alone does not explain why recognizable Neanderthal populations disappeared. Their greatest weakness may have been demographic rather than intellectual. Neanderthals often lived in small, scattered communities. Small populations are fragile because every death, failed birth, and local disaster matters more. Genetic evidence suggests low diversity and repeated isolation that can increase vulnerability to disease, reduce fertility, and make population recovery increasingly difficult. Homo sapiens appears to have maintained broader social networks connecting groups across larger distances. Those networks allowed tools, food, mates, information, and survival strategies to move between communities that may rarely have met directly. When one Neanderthal group disappeared, much of its knowledge may have vanished with it. Human networks made knowledge harder to destroy. At the same time, climate repeatedly transformed the landscapes both species depended upon. Forests expanded, grasslands retreated, and prey populations moved. Neanderthals were not defeated in one final war. They were gradually compressed by environmental instability, low numbers, competition, and absorption. By around 40,000 years ago, they disappeared as a distinct population, leaving bones, tools, genes, and questions behind. The Denisovans are even more mysterious because archaeology has given us almost none of their bodies. Their discovery began with a tiny finger bone found inside Denisova cave in Siberia. Physically, it seemed almost insignificant. Genetically, it revealed an unknown human population, distinct from both Neanderthals and Homo sapiens. Since then, scientists have identified only a limited collection of Denisovan remains, including large teeth and a jawbone from the Tibetan Plateau. Yet their genetic influence covers enormous distances. Denisovan ancestry remains in modern populations across parts of Asia, Australia, and Oceania. Some populations carry especially significant Denisovan ancestry, proving that repeated encounters and interbreeding occurred far beyond the Siberian cave where they were discovered. One of their genetic contributions still helps Tibetan populations function at high altitude, where low oxygen places severe stress on the human body. A vanished human population, therefore, continues helping living humans survive in an extreme environment. The Denisovans may have occupied a vast geographical range, but their communities were probably scattered thinly across it. Once again, low population density may have been decisive. A species can inhabit an enormous territory and still remain dangerously close to disappearance. Some Denisovan populations may have died out. Others may have been absorbed into Homo sapiens. Their disappearance was likely both extinction and integration. Then, on the island of Flores, evolution produced one of the strangest known human forms. Homo floresiensis stood only about 1 meter tall and possessed a brain dramatically smaller than that of modern humans. At first, some researchers believed the remains represented diseased Homo sapiens. Further discoveries supported a separate human species adapted to island life. Islands reshape evolution. Limited resources can cause large animals to become smaller, while the absence of predators can allow small animals to grow. Flores contained dwarf elephants, enormous birds, Komodo dragons, and a tiny human species capable of producing stone tools. Their small brains did not prevent them from surviving for tens of thousands of years in an environment filled with unusual dangers. But island specialization creates vulnerability. A population confined to one island cannot easily escape environmental change or replace losses with newcomers. Homo floresiensis disappeared around the period when modern humans were spreading through the surrounding region. We do not know whether Homo sapiens competed with them, introduced disease, changed the ecosystem, or simply arrived as their population was already collapsing. On a small island, extinction does not require genocide. A few generations of disruption may be enough. So what made Homo sapiens different? Intelligence matters, but intelligence alone cannot explain the outcome. Neanderthals were intelligent. Denisovans adapted to extreme altitude. Homo erectus survived far longer than our species has existed. Our advantage may have been collective intelligence. Not what one person knew, but how efficiently knowledge moved between many people. Homo sapiens formed larger, more flexible networks. We exchanged materials across long distances and maintained relationships beyond immediate family groups. That transformed survival. A new tool invented in one place could spread. A hunting strategy could outlive the group that created it. A community facing famine could seek support, trade, relocate, or join another population rather than disappear completely. Language, symbolism, and shared identity may have allowed strangers to cooperate in ways other human species practiced less extensively. Our species also appears unusually flexible. Homo sapiens adapted tools, diets, shelters, and social structures to deserts, forests, coasts, mountains, and frozen landscapes. Instead of depending upon one prey species or one environment, we repeatedly changed strategies when conditions shifted. Population size amplified every advantage. More people meant more inventions, more social connections, more genetic diversity, and greater recovery after disasters. But none of this means Homo sapiens was destined to survive. Geography and timing mattered. A volcanic eruption, epidemic, drought, or migration route could have changed which human population expanded and which one disappeared. Our ancestors may simply have reached critical regions with enough people, enough connections, and enough flexibility at the right moment. The other human species were not failed experiments leading toward us. They were complete humans following different evolutionary paths. Homo erectus mastered endurance. Neanderthals mastered cold landscapes. Denisovans occupied extreme environments. Homo floresiensis survived through radical island adaptation. Their disappearance does not prove they were inferior. Extinction often means that a population encountered more change than its numbers could absorb. And in one important sense, some of them never fully disappeared. They survive in our genomes, immune systems, appearance, and physiological adaptations. We are the last human species, but we are not genetically pure survivors standing above a field of defeated rivals. We are partly the result of encounters between different humans, carrying fragments of extinct populations into the present. For most of history, humanity was a family of branches. Some were isolated, some merged, some slowly ended. Only one branch still has living populations, but pieces of the others remain woven through it. We survived because we connected, adapted, expanded, and absorbed. We survived because our populations were large enough when others became dangerously small. And we survived because history contains chance. The last human species was not necessarily the best. It was simply the one whose networks, numbers, geography, and luck carried it through the final narrowing of the human family. Once, several kinds of humans looked at the same stars. Now only one remains to remember that the others ever existed.